Welcome to Priceless Takes.
And we are live from the Gold Coast, Australia. Welcome back, everyone, to Priceless Takes, episode 81. I'm your host, Luca Price, and joining me today, maybe for the last time in a while, as we conclude this year's NBA season, Tyson, Oscar, and Ruben wearing a very interesting jersey over there after what happened yesterday. Boys, how are we doing today?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah, good.
Listen, Ruben, considering you're the only one that actually predicted the series correctly out of the four of us, do you want to explain exactly why you're wearing that jersey?
Look, I think I developed a little soft spot for Halliburton. I was hoping for a little Indiana upset, and then I think the Indiana Demons got to them one time. I think a little bit of, not great karma.
I think Ruben's real answer
It
was
is what it is.
jerseys are $25 each at the moment. They are on special, going like hotcakes. So Rubes had to pick one up.
Yeah, I picked up from the side of the street.
Ruben, I would have appreciated it if you had that soft spot a bit earlier, so I wasn't the only one picking the Pacers to advance throughout the entirety of the playoffs. But considering they're going to be pretty bad next year, or so we think, I don't know how long.
Well, actually, you know what? You never know. You never know with Indiana.
Straight to Germany for Tyrese.
The East is wide open, so yeah, I don't think we can count that.
Indiana.
Oh no.
Well, guys, listen, it is all fun and games here to start the episode, but we're going to get straight into it. We got a lot of content to get through today. We got NBA Finals talk. We got trade talk because KD got announced yesterday before the finals. Desmond Bane, we got announced, even though it's going to be strictly about the Magic because we don't really need to talk about the Grizzlies when it comes to that trade because the Grizzlies are pretty irrelevant. Then we're going to move to the end of the trades with Drew Holiday because that just happened literally hours ago before we got on the air. Then, if we have time, which I'm thinking we will, we're going to go back into our preseason predictions, which I have on my phone here right now. We're going to go through what worked, what didn't, what we can maybe do for next season. But guys, OKC are your 2025 NBA champions, winning their first championship in Oklahoma. They did win one in Seattle in 1979, but first one with the Thunder. Between the regular season and the playoffs, guys, they had a historic season. They had won 84 games, this team, with only the 96-7 Bulls doing better and the 16 Warriors. So, pretty elite company, but it didn't come with a bit of controversy, guys. Halliburton started the game 3 for 4 and looked like he might have shot Indiana to victory on his own, but he went out with an Achilles tear, which was confirmed yesterday morning. From there, guys, Indiana, look, they held their own. TJ came in, they stepped in, they're up by 1 at halftime off a really, really impressive Andrew Nembhard step back 3. Some smart people had him as a long shot tip for finals MVP, but unfortunately, that one didn't turn out with Nembhard. But the Thunder guys brought it back in the second half, absolutely killed the Pacers in the third quarter, which some more smart people said was going to happen during the game, but unfortunately, we can't document that in real life. And final score, 103-91. Ruben, I know you're wearing that jersey. I do want to hear from you first. Shea had an all-right game. I mean, I didn't think he played particularly great. I thought OKC's defense was really what stepped up in this game. Ruben, what are your thoughts on this Game 7, the Halliburton injury, and the series as a whole?
Well, I'm always the first to talk about health, but I think we've seen time and time again throughout the regular season, the playoffs, that the Thunder have just been the best team in the NBA. It's shown through their record. Looking at HGA and the whole OKC offense, I thought they were pretty inefficient. But when you look at Shea, he actually turned into an Indiana Pacer player. He had 12 assists off 1 turnover. So I think getting everyone else involved, he played really well. I thought Chet was very inconsistent throughout the whole series, but last night he really stepped up, shooting 6 at 8, having multiple blocks, locking up Siakam in the second half. But for me, like you said, Luca, very close throughout. I think what let Indiana down was that third quarter. OKC outscoring them 34-20 overall, and then McConnell, I think it was from the 7th minute mark of the third to like the 7th or 8th minute mark in the fourth. TJ McConnell, the only one scoring, but McConnell had 7 turnovers still. I think OKC altogether had 7 or 8, and I think that inexperience probably let them down a bit, and having Halliburton there probably helped them out. But look, Indiana, were Indiana last night. In a way, they looked more ISO, and OKC seemed to be switching the ball more, which was surprising. But I think overall, I think OKC deserved it.
Carson? Yeah.
Yeah, no, look, as an NBA fan, always love to see a good series. First game 7 since 2016 was it? Like, you cannot complain about that. Could go either way, down to the wire. You don't know who's going to take it. But it was pretty set in stone that OKC were pretty destined. Best odds to win this year. It just helps when your whole starting five's elite two-way players. They're just completely well built. They had to learn from last year, made the trade that they needed to do, got rid of Giddey, take on Caruso, and it seemed to work. But yeah, I definitely wasn't expecting to go to 7 games, I will admit. But when you look at it as the top offense and top defense, you can take a pretty good guess after that. So, but yeah, OKC definitely deserved it. So happy for them.
Yeah, I mean, it is tragic that Tyrese got injured, obviously. It would have been good to see him play the rest of the game because I think the game would have been a little bit closer at the end there, even though it was pretty closer than I thought it was going to be after that third quarter. But, I've seen a lot of people taking away from OKC because Tyrese got injured and saying, oh, well, this, that, and the other, Mickey Mouse ring, whatever. But OKC, Indiana are a team that plays as a team, like a very well-rounded team. And when a guy goes down and a guy goes away, the others usually step up. And OKC were able to combat that really, really well with their defense as they've been doing that all playoffs. So, I think the Pacers played absolutely unbelievably this playoffs, and I've been hating on them a little bit all every episode, but no, they played very well, and to take a team like OKC to Game 7 is no easy feat, but OKC able to get the job done, and let's not take anything away from the champions, from a 68 win team, and yeah, I think they deserved it at the end of the day. So.
Yeah, look, so many things to talk about from my end. I think the first thing is, although I was very, very high on the Pacers all throughout the playoffs, I picked them to advance to the finals. I picked them to beat the Cavs and make the upset there. I think I still underestimated how good they actually were because I didn't think the series was going to be as close as what it was, and they were able to make OKC, which are a historically great defensive team, they were able to make them look lost at times. They still went on big scoring runs. When I thought Indiana was out of the series, I thought they were out of the series at Game 3. They came back and won. They went up 2-1. Guys, in Game 4, they were up 10 points, like at the end of the third quarter, and they let, in my opinion, the championship slip away. The OKC came back in that fourth quarter, and then again, I thought Indiana were gone in Game 6, and they blew the Thunder out. So to get to the point that they got to, I think, is very, very impressive. Maybe I think it wasn't so much us overrating the Thunder. I think it was more underrating the Pacers still, because it was still 7 games, and we all thought it would be 5, except for you, Ruben. Game 7 itself, guys, I think it really, really showed the value of Tyrese Halliburton. And what I mean by that is TJ McConnell had a great series, but we saw that, maybe it was because it was Game 7 and he still scored a lot of points, but I know Tyrese Halliburton wouldn't have had 7 turnovers in that game if he had have kept on playing. And I think last night we saw that just because you're a great player off the bench and you're a spark plug and you can ignite your team, doesn't necessarily mean, when you're playing the starters and you're not playing the backups, that can all change very quickly. And despite Siakam winning Eastern Conference Finals MVP, it's solidified in my mind that Tyrese Halliburton is truly the heart and soul of that team. And Ruben, you alluded to it before, the Pacers are so well-rounded that they could adjust for a little bit. They could keep themselves in the game. But once that injury happened, it was no doubt in my mind that OKC was going to win that game. I really thought there was no possible way Indiana was going to come back. They just simply couldn't throw enough haymakers, and you saw that towards the end. But guys, defense won Oklahoma City's championship. Shea did not have a great second half, particularly offensively. played great defense, played great facilitating, but he was 8 of 27 from the field. And in that, he was 3 of 15 in the second half, 1 for 9 from 3-pointers. And Indiana played great defense too. They were making OKC settle for a lot of shots. But guys, 23 turnovers to 7 is just not going to win you a game 7. And that's the reality of the situation. Now, I want to get your thoughts, Oscar. You picked Oklahoma City, I believe, at the start of the season to win the championship.
I did.
If I'm not correct. Do you think they can go on with the job next year, or do you think we're going to see something similar happen to them?
Oh.
What happened last year and the year before to the Celtics and the Nuggets?
This is a very well-rounded team. They're paying the right guys. They've got the money in the right spot, so they can keep this team together. Do I think they'll be there at the end? Do I think they'll make the finals? I definitely think they've got a very, very high chance to make and win the finals again, yes. But, you never know. A year's a very, very long time, and, injuries happen and things change. So I'm going to say yes. I think they can go make the finals again. I don't know if they're going to win it. I'm going to have to think about that a little bit longer, but I definitely think they can go and make the finals again.
Yeah.
I also want to give a shout out to J-Dub Tyson, quickly. 40 points in Game 5. That was a turning point for me in that series. And
Turning point for you, Rubes? Or are you still hating on the guy? Still hating on the guy?
Oh, okay.
I'm doesn't consider him a champion yet.
Apparently, I'm J-Dub. I thought I was actually more disappointed about Chet, and then Game 7 he popped off, and I was I was ready to get a rant
5 blocks in Game 7, and I was down on him too. He was shooting historically bad from 3, and and to be Tyson again. Sorry for interrupting. But before I said Chet was going to be the X factor in this series, and 12% from 3 until Game 7 proved, I think, another reason why Indiana were able to extend this series because he was playing god awful, and he was my X factor for a reason, and he did not play like it. And in Game 7. Was when that X Factor showed up. 5 blocks, 18 points, a smart person.
Saving it all for Game 7, saving it all for the home game.
Look, and like J-Dub happened, like Caruso, he had 20 points twice in that series. He had 2 early threes, he had 4 steals, I think, in the game as well. Definitely 3. I'm not sure we got the 4th one.
Right, that was the first time, was it all season that he got 20 points and it was in the...
I think so, yeah.
Was it?
So he was born
Caruso,
as well.
First time he got 20 points was in this finals.
So like
For OKC.
There's so many things to talk about. But yeah, Tyson, do you think OKC can go on with it next year?
Look, you go based off history, the last 7 years.
Yeah, that's
I was going to say that.
That's the only thing. Like, obviously they can do it, but
like in this day and age, like. Anyone can compete on the given series, to an extent. I
mean, you're not chucking the Bulls in that team.
That's what I'm thinking. But look, they're a young team. They're going to keep the same core, and they're more as a family than a team. So I think like the off season, they're just gonna, push each other twice as hard and be gym rats for the whole time. So I don't see them getting any worse. So I do think they definitely have a pretty damn good chance to, make the finals and win it. But myself personally, I don't think they will, but obviously for other reasons. But I do think they have a good chance.
I think the Lakers.
Yeah.
I'd have to agree with Tyson on the history aspect of when you look at the champion, not make past the second round. But the Thunder are so young, and I think it's only up from them. And I think when you look at Sam Presti, he's such a good GM and VP, and he's always been right there. But people have been critical of him that he hasn't been able to get over the final hurdle. Like when you look at it was 2012 Thunder when they had that young core and they didn't pay Harden and they lost to Miami in 5. I think they've finally done that now, and they've got all that first round capital. They've got the young core. I think even Isaiah Joe, who's a young player who could develop into a Caruso-like player, I think he could step in and fit into a lot of NBA teams. So I'm not 100% convinced that it's definitively Thunder will win, but I think they'll be right there next season.
It's hard not to, with all their capital that they have, it's hard to not say they're not going to be, it's hard to not say they're not going to be there, for the next 5 years or so. Because they've got all this capital, they've got all these really talented guys on their roster already, and they've got all these draft picks. So it's hard to say they're not going to move pieces around to put themselves in the best position to win, especially with Sam Presti at the helm. And they have a brilliant coach as well. So yeah, it's hard to say they're not going to be there for the next couple of years. Are they going to win the championship? Well, history shows probably not, but they're still, I think they're going to be in that territory.
Yeah, it is going to prove very hard. The West is going to get better, and we'll talk about KD later, but there's also, as much as we laugh about them, like now when we talk about the Lakers getting new ownership, out of all the young players, but I'm just saying, like, Jokic has won one, now Shea's won one, Giannis has won one, Doncic, we talk about being a universal top 5, definite top 3 player. Like, I'm just saying, like, after the Lakers dramatically plowed out, like, and same with the Timberwolves, like, I would expect the Timberwolves, to make some serious adjustments. The Rockets seem like they've gone all in, and, in a few years' time, like, when Wemby, ascends, like, the Spurs are going to be a real threat too. Maybe not next year immediately, but give it 2 or 3 years, and then you're going to have them happening too. So I think it is very hard for them to come back. But like you said, Oscar, they have such a young core. They have so many assets that they haven't given up. They haven't given up any of their future. They've got good contracts. We're going to see now, because they are going to have to extend their players. And OKC is a small market team. I don't think they're a team that particularly is interested in going into the luxury tax. So we'll see how that works for them, because there's going to be a lot of contracts that are going to be due. Oscar, do you have something else you want to say before
No, I'm good.
the Pacers? Because I do want to talk about Indy, and I might start with you, Tyson. Obviously, Halliburton's out now. The East, seems to be getting weaker by the season. Do you think the Pacers can still be a threat next year? It seems like Halliburton's going to be out for the entire of next year because this injury's happened so late in the season. That was the reports that I watched this morning. What do you think is the road for Indiana next year?
Look, obviously you have to respect Halliburton. Crazy good, all-star point guard. So, and he's the main behind the whole offensive machine. So it's hard to say that they'll replicate it, but in some moments throughout this playoffs, Halliburton's like been playing, on the court. They're still performing pretty damn well, I'd say. But for a whole season with them, I don't think they'll probably top 5 seed again. I understand the East is weak, but probably pushing that 8th spot, I reckon.
Yeah, I mean, I probably agree. It's going to be definitely difficult. Tyrese has really turned into the guy, for Indiana, especially in these playoffs. So it is going to be hard when you've had that guy, especially make his stand in this playoffs, go out for the whole year. It is going to be tough. But as I said before, Indiana are a team. There's no one guy on that team that plays really well. So I don't think they're going to make the top 5. I do think they will be in the playoffs though, and they're going to still do their thing and be a team and play as a team, and they're going to have a lot of guys that have over 15 points in a game, as they usually do. So I think there are guys on that team that can definitely step up and drag them to the playoffs, and they're not going to be what they were this year, but I do think they will still make the playoffs.
I think I agree to some extent, because I think of how deep they are, and I look at the West being wide open. Tatum out with Achilles, Damian Lillard out with Achilles. Now you got Halliburton, and you can see Giannis out of the East as well. We don't know what's going on in Philadelphia. I don't think there's going to be too many competitors. And Indiana did start off slow this season. They were 16-18. They did pull it out to 15-32. So I would put them, in terms of a tier of contending, I'd put them like in a 1B, where they're definitely not in the top 3 or 4, but I'd probably put them at 5 or 6 when you look at the gap between the playoff teams and 7 to 10. Like, we saw that in the playoffs this year, that Cleveland absolutely smacked up Miami, and they were like Miami, Boston. No, sorry, obviously not Boston. Chicago, Atlanta, there's just a massive gap in terms of competition there. So if it was the West, I'd be worried, but I think Indiana will have a good chance of still competing again, considering how deep they are.
Yeah. I don't know. I think so, but I don't expect them to do much, to be honest with you. I think we could see like a real,
You think they'll make the playoffs?
I'm sort of sitting with Tyson. It depends what off-season moves they make. Honestly, like I would have liked, like considering, and we're going to talk about it later, but considering what the Celtics gave up for Anthony Simons, like I would have even liked the Pacers. Although he's more of a score first type player, he can facilitate the ball. I wouldn't have minded if Indiana had gone and gotten him, even if it was just for a season, to stay competitive and then not have to pay him. I think they're going to sit around like the play-in, to be honest with you. I think we're going to see next year in the East, although I don't know if there will be too many championship threats necessarily. I think we're going to see a lot of good regular season teams that I think they're going to like go up the standings. I think, like I said, we got the Cavs, who, despite them being absolute frauds in the playoffs, are still probably going to have, 55 plus wins. I like the Knicks. I like the Magic. I also still like the Bucks in the regular season. I like the Pistons in the regular season. I'm going to give Philly a chance in the regular season. I think they just had, well, listen, I'm not going to compare. I don't want to compare the two teams as to how this team end up. But, we saw Steph Curry break his hand. The Warriors get the second pick of the draft, and then they come back and win the championship next year. I'm not saying Philly's going to win the championship, but can they be a top 6 team? I think they can easily be a top 6 team next year. I'm just saying, it's like you can't. Like stranger things have happened. I believe that Philly can be a top 6 team next year. And I've been overly critical of Philly, throughout our time on this show. So when you look at those teams, when you look at those teams, I think that the Pacers are going to fight around.
No other teams.
No.
Who else is there? There's Raptors, Nets. Who else in the East?
Yeah.
Hornets.
Hornets.
Wizards.
Washington. Washington just got Chris Middleton for another year. So.
Yeah.
I think we've named all the good teams. Yeah.
Yeah. I think so as well.
Ruben Atlanta.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to bring up another point. Game 7 of the NBA Finals is just great for the NBA in general. It was the most watched finals game in 6 years, and it's been the first Game 7 in the finals in 10 years. So Game 7 NBA Finals, I think, is great for the sport, great as a fan. The final thing I want to say before we move on, and we haven't actually brought this up at all, but like Sacramento just proved once again just how much of a horrible franchise they are.
I'm fuming, Sacramento.
We never addressed this at all on the show, but I thought about it a few weeks ago. And I remember for the longest time, it was like, oh yeah, like, Sabonis, like Halliburton, that was like a pretty
How have they
even
traded
trade.
away every good player that they've ever had?
And like at the start of once they beat the Knicks, I think I was like to myself, I was like, the Kings are just so.
They just see
silly.
a good player and be like, we don't want you anymore.
And
you can
like,
go.
They went from having, Fox and Halliburton, and who knows what Fox would do with the Spurs, to having probably no Sabonis, and then Levine and DeRozan, who
what a bloody
team.
team.
So
I've never seen that before.
Yeah. I wanted to give a shout out to Sacramento for just being absolute.
We were third in the East.
Can I just quickly say something about that as well, Luca? Because at the start of the season, I picked them as my dark horse, just because I looked at their starting five. Yeah, they were my dark horse, the Kings. And then I saw they got rid of their coach and they got rid of Fox, and I was like, I've seen enough. Like, I'm not backing this team ever again. They're a poorly run franchise. I think even Chris Webber was talking about it on First Take. They had a couple chances to maybe get some pieces for the Kings to maybe get a chip, but he basically alluded they were poorly run. So, yeah, never jumping on the Kings bandwagon again.
But props to Tyrese Halliburton. I'm honestly gonna, in a way, like remember these playoffs nearly as like the Tyrese Halliburton playoffs. To be honest with you, just the clutch shots, the unbelievable performances, and ultimately, I think what will make people remember it is how it ended. Just like that. Obviously, it would have been more Tyrese Halliburton playoffs like if they won the championship, but the fact that it ended, I think, for me, really sort of solidifies how great his playoff run is. But yeah, OKC, we'll see how they go next year. We are going to move now into some trade news. Guys, personally, I wish this got leaked today. I was excited
Yeah.
for Game 7. I didn't want to be more excited for KD. I was like, why couldn't that just happen like tomorrow or the day after? Like, why do they have to happen like on the
He was
same
on
day as Game 7? I felt
while
like
Katie was on stage.
yeah, like too many good things happening in one day. But that's where we're gonna move to, guys. KD to H Town, all right? Houston, we do not have a problem anymore because Durant
Phoenix, we have a
is
problem.
here. Exactly. Look, KD still coming off a very efficient 27-6-4 season. Goes to Houston, traded away from Phoenix, who received Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, the number 10 pick in this year's draft, which Phoenix originally owned, and 5 future second-round picks. This now makes the projected starting lineup for the Rockets look like this: Fred VanVleet, Amen Thompson, KD, Jabari Smith Jr., and Alfred Sengun, with Ime Udoka at the helm as head coach. Tyson, does this make the Rockets instant championship contenders? What do you feel about this trade?
Wow.
I don't think instant contenders, no. Um, it definitely fills in a huge gap of their lack of scoring, for sure. Um, but to me, I think it really relies on the leap that Amen Thompson takes and like his ability to become a, reliable, I guess. What would you consider him? Potential second option, third option, whatever. Yeah, honestly, I think that just relies on his, ability to take the next step. So if he does take the next step, then it's looking pretty damn deadly for sure. But yeah, that's probably my view on that.
Bruce?
Yeah, I think, when I look at Houston this season, they're outstanding defensively. Udoka's a defensive-minded coach. They were great. They took Golden State to 7 games, but I think ultimately what let them down was Jalen Green being too inconsistent. And I think he didn't have many games where he got even above 15 from what I remember. And then you were going to have to pay him probably a bag and extension. I think his contract was running out. And KD just slots right into Houston. Like they've got a role for him. The trade, they didn't have to give up too much for him. Like Dylan Brooks, I mean, yeah, he provides you some defense and that's about it. Like I know a lot about Dylan Brooks from Memphis, but anyway, I think with Houston, the West is so wide open. I think Kevin Durant's a solid bona fide scorer. But I think he is going to have to step up his leadership game because this is a young core. And like Tyson said, I think it also comes down to Amen Thompson developing, even Şengün developing, because I think he was okay, but Draymond Green did clamp him up quite well. But I think this is a good move for Houston.
I think this is a amazing move for Houston. I don't know. You've got a guy. We're talking about KD here. We're not talking about some scrub. This is one of the best scorers that we've ever seen. Probably the best scorer that us four has ever seen.
Yeah.
Slotting into Houston, where they, as Ruben said, they already have a role for him. Last year or this year in the playoffs, they struggled because they didn't have that guy on their team that can close games, that can finish games. Now they do. They have Kevin Durant, one of the best to ever do it, and they didn't have to trade away any of their really, long-term pieces. They didn't have to trade away any of their really long-term pieces. So
Many draft picks.
Picks. And so if it doesn't work, they still have their young core. They still have a bunch of draft picks. And if it doesn't work, it's kind of just like a freebie of a trade for them. I don't know. I love this move for Houston. I'm a big Houston hater. I think they're frauds.
I'm not saying it's not a bad trade.
Yeah, I'm just saying, you guys are seeming a bit,
Well, look, I just think
down
the
on
West
it.
is really competitive.
I'm just not full convinced with it.
I'm very convinced that this team can go long into these next playoffs. Barring any injuries, that's the only thing. KD's had some injury problems in the past, as we all know. But you're adding a guy on your team that can actually close games for you, that can score consistently, that rebounds very well, that can lead a team, and who's been in the league for many, many, many years, and who can help these young guys grow. And you're adding that. I just think it's a great move for Houston. I think it's a fantastic move for Houston, and Phoenix are in absolute shambles.
Oscar, if Houston were in the East, I wouldn't have any problem with what you said. I just don't want to overrate Houston just because of how competitive the West is. That's all I want to say. I don't want to say that they're guaranteed championship contender. I think they will be a contender.
They still won 52 games in the West, and they're adding KD.
But that's regular season. Like, you look at Cleveland, regular season is
But
different.
you're adding KD to the playoffs, who's a fantastic playoff performer.
Yeah, but Oscar, when you look at Kevin Durant, he lost to the finals against the Heat. He didn't give them any success in Brooklyn, and their big three in Phoenix was a big disaster. I'm just looking at. I'm playing devil's advocate.
He's a finals MVP.
Yeah, I had to team up with Steph Curry,
but he won the finals
MVP. I'm just
MVP.
trying not to overrate it. No,
he was the best player in that final.
Kevin Durant is a brilliant player, and at 36, he's had great longevity. I think he's still great. He's going to have another 3 or 4 years in the NBA. I don't want to overrate the trade. I still think Houston need to do some things.
They trade. I think Houston traded a bag of chips for KD. Phoenix are in shambles.
I totally agree. They've still got the future and everything.
What I'm saying is it was pretty much, in my eyes, a free trade for Houston, a free way to get KD when Phoenix had zero, as you said, before we started, they had zero leverage. They had no leverage on this trade. They needed KD wanted out. KD wanted out, and the Rockets got a free snag, which happened to be one of the best players we've ever seen.
I would put them like a top. I'd definitely put them like top 4, top 5, but I'm not ready to put them up with like OKC yet. I want to see them play together and see how they go. That's all I'm trying to say. Yeah,
well, obviously, but I think that's
it was a really good trade. Don't get me wrong.
Trade. I think the Rockets. This was an absolute steal, and I think they're going to be very good.
Oscar, I have a question for you. Kevin Durant's about to be 37.
Yep.
We haven't seen him get out of the second round since he left the Warriors. Do you think that he still has the impact on winning that he once did when he was with the Warriors, and can lead them not so much in leadership in the locker room, but leadership through his play with this young team? Do you think he still has a championship run left in him based on what we've seen since he's left?
Well, I think that, we look at the teams KD has been on since then, and it was Brooklyn, then Phoenix. And, Phoenix was thrown together with no real template or plan around it. I think they just, the owners just chucked all these guys together and expect something to be great. So I think with this Houston team, I think he has a role. He knows his role. And I think it's a bit more simple for him going into this team rather than going into that Brooklyn team, which they chucked a couple guys together and thought something was going to happen. And it nearly did. And then the same thing in Phoenix, where it kind of plateaued and he struggled. And he was injured throughout that, Brooklyn, Phoenix kind of section of his career. But I think that he's got he's going to know his role much better on this team. He's going to, go into this team and have a bit of normality about his position on it. So I think that he can. I think that he can. He's going to be able to do that for them.
Yeah, listen, you all said a lot of things that I agree with. Personally, for me, I think it's a great trade. And I think the reason that I think it's a great trade is because unless Jalen Green somehow turns into like the next Kobe, which I highly, highly doubt is going to happen, I think what Houston effectively did is they kept their floor the same. I think that I don't think there's really much chance that they're going to have less wins than what they did this season because of their depth. But I think they kept their floor the same, but they significantly raised their ceiling. And I'm not saying they're going to win the championship, but I think that with Jalen Green, because Jalen Green was the leading scorer on that team, and he averaged 13 points in the playoffs against the Warriors. Okay, if KD's going to give you guaranteed 25 a night, even at this age. So that's why I like the trade. I think you significantly increased your ceiling while keeping your floor relatively the same. And in the NBA, what we've seen is deep teams and well-constructed teams win championships. And Tyson, I agree with you. I think a lot of it also could be on Amen Thompson's shoulders, but he really showed me something in the playoffs last year. And I think that's also why it made the ability to make Jalen Green expendable far, far easier because of what we saw from Amen Thompson. There are a fair few question marks, I do agree, but what I think is particularly good about this trade is Also, the coaching situation. Udoka, in my opinion, might well be the best coach in the NBA. I think he's definitely a top 3 coach in the NBA. He just got a multi-year extension. KD already knows Udoka because he was an assistant on the Nets before he got the Celtics job. He's already led the Celtics to the NBA Finals. He had a good regular season with this team, although they fell short in the playoffs. And Ruben, I don't think KD needs to be a leader because I think Udoka is the leader, and I think he will be the leader of this team through his coaching, through his tenacious coaching style, and their defense. I don't think right now, honestly, I would put them right below OKC in my Western Conference rankings right now, to be completely honest with you. And I think that, this time next year, I would be very tempted to pick Houston in a series against OKC if that matchup did occur. But for me, Oscar, I completely agree for what you gave up. And your floor is here for both trades, with KD, without KD. But I think with KD, your ceiling's up here. And with Jalen Green, your ceiling's probably only still here. So that's why I love this trade. If anyone has anything to add, we will move on to the Magic trade.
Can we just have like a little moment's silence for Suns fans? I mean, you made the finals.
Do we know any Suns fans? I don't know.
But
do we know any Suns fans?
They're out there, and it is a daunting time for
I
them.
don't know if we could give someone a shout out.
Charles Barkley going to go on another rant about how poorly run Phoenix are.
But to make the finals in 2021 and be up 2-0 in those finals and be in a very, very good position, then trade your leader CP3, then to trade Mikal Bridges, and then to also trade Cam Johnson and all those picks that they traded for Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, and a 10th. I think they're in some really, really hot water right now. And
at this point for the Suns, I would honestly just trade Booker, cut Beal, and
Devin
just
Booker
rebuild,
might just
and
want
honestly
out.
just rebuild with Jalen Green. And try to develop
Bradley
him
Beal.
into a new Devin Booker and try to do the same thing again. Because if I'm Booker, I don't want to be in Phoenix anymore.
They don't have a true point guard. They don't have a really good center. I don't even know.
Pretty good.
He's not starting.
Colin Gillespie, he's actually pretty.
They don't have a starting point guard.
Popov's looking good.
Devin Booker will start at point guard, which I don't think that's his natural role.
Well, they got Johnny. I think it was Johnny Bryant. Oh no, it was Jonathan Ott from the Cavs. They got as their new head coach as well. I think Phoenix should be rebuilding. If I'm being
100%.
Their owner has just put the team in absolute shambles and is just pulling the trigger on everything.
This is a cut your losses. This is a cut your losses situation.
You went all in. Okay, you failed, and now you need to cut your losses. I completely agree.
Yeah.
If I'm the Suns, I'm trying to get as much capital as I can for Booker. Beal, I think, is honestly untradeable, and I'm rebuilding with Jalen Green.
Well, you got to get rid of Beal somehow, even if it is for.
That's what I'm saying.
No, that's what I'm saying. Well, you're hoping now he waives that, which I don't know.
Because a backcourt, well, not even a backcourt, a starting
Beal's not starting.
Of Booker, Green, and Beal is just
Beal's not starting. He's
borderline
Brooks at the 4.
That's that's unplayable. I'm sorry, that's going nowhere. But yeah, Phoenix, I think needs to rebuild. Fans. I think Phoenix needs to rebuild. I'm trying to think. I don't know who the top NBA prospects are coming through, but I'd be looking for some of those 9th graders or 10th graders if they can't recoup their draft picks, because that's probably the next
Bring
time.
back Frank Kaminsky as the backup center.
They own their pick. But yeah, guys, listen, let's talk about Orlando. Desmond Bane, our first sort of big domino of the NBA offseason. Bane averaged 19, 6, and 5 last year, one of the best three-point shooters in the league. He goes to a Magic team, which now I think puts this Magic team in a really interesting spot, particularly when you look at the rest of the East. So the Magic received Desmond Bane on his own. They give away to the Grizzlies Cole Anthony, KCP, 4 first-round picks, including the 16th pick in this year's draft, 2026, 2028, and 2030 picks, 2029 first-round pick swap, and the 2026 first-round draft pick. They could swap with either Phoenix or Washington, which, both of those teams are looking like that might be a high draft pick. Guys, the Magic starting lineup for next year projected, barring any more moves, Jalen Suggs, Desmond Bane, Franz Wagner, Banchero, and Wendell Carter Jr. Oscar, where do you put the Magic in the Eastern Conference right now, just off the top of your head?
I actually really like the look of this team. And they give me kind of Detroit Pistons vibes in terms of how their team's built and like the kind of I think they're going to have a bit of swagger going into next season with this, a lot of 3-point shooting, and then you got Paolo and Franz driving to the hole, and Wendell Carter, that big lob threat, really good defensive player. So I think they've got, I don't know, they've got a bit of aura about them that I really like. I think they might move up into the top 6, maybe top 5 if they, if Desmond really, changes the way that team, plays. But I think they're going to be better, not that much better, but better. But over the next couple of years, I think as these players develop and get better, these young guys, I think they're going to be very good. I just don't think it's going to be next year. So I think maybe top 6, maybe top 5, around there.
I actually disagree with you, Oscar. I really
Wow.
like this trade. And look,
Oh yeah,
as
that's
a,
what I
Obviously,
said.
you do, Ruben. You want to see the
well,
Grizzlies players do well.
I know how good Bane is firsthand. Like, trying to be a non-biased Memphis fan, I think Orlando did give away too many first-round picks. But
Oh,
I think when
100%.
you look at Orlando, especially last season, I picked Jamal Mosley as coach of the year. I try to predict it because I could see what Magic were doing. They're brilliant defensively, and what they lacked was three-point shooting. So what do they get? One of the best three-point shooters in the
Mm.
league. And I think Desmond Bane is going to be a great scorer for them.
Yeah,
And then
I
when
just
you
don't think it's going to happen next year. I think that Orlando still need time to develop as a team together, and they're a very young team still. I think
look,
that's what they've got going for them. And
Look, I don't have a problem with that, Oscar. But where I have to disagree with you on is that when you look at Orlando, they've replaced KCP, who wasn't great, and Desmond Bane's a lot better player. They've got more three-point shooting, which I think they were like second last or last
mm,
in. And then when you look at last season, we forget Franz Wagner and Ben Carey missed a lot of time, and they still got the 7 seed. And then when you open up the East
you
now,
think
with
they're going
as
to
we
go
were saying
higher?
earlier, I put them top 3. I think this is a win now. When you
Okay.
look at all the draft picks given up, I really like this move for the Magic. I think the one thing they need to get now, I think, is a better center, like a more solidified center. Don't get me wrong, Batadze, Wendell Carter Jr., that are solid, but I think to be contending, you need that solid 5. And I think that's where to get over to conference finals or finals, I think they need a better center than what they have at the moment.
Yeah, look, no, I agree with Rubes. I reckon it's a great trade in the Magic's favor, obviously. Like, you just added a whole scoring threat on the ball. Like, I think the Magic will finally escape the play-in curse, and I do think they'll be top 5 for sure. I don't think anything less than 5. Um, and look, at the rate the Magic growing, you got to realize Paolo and Franz, 20, just turned 22, like, and he's already looking like a solidified all-star.
And Bane's
So
26.
Bane is still 26, and Jalen Suggs, what's 24 or something like that? Like, it's a crazy young team, and they're only getting better, like, individually. So just need to see how they go as a team. And I think adding Bane is a great piece in the right direction. So
I
I
think
do
that
think
was
it's gonna.
I think that was kind of the mindset in trading all those picks, is that your team is already very young, and you're adding Desmond Bane, who is still very young also. So that's all I was saying. I think they're going to be a very good team in the future. I just think it's not gonna. I don't think it's going to happen quite next year. I do think they're going to get out of the play-in. I just don't think they're going to be that top 3, that elite team.
Yeah, and,
You
and
know,
on those picks, Oscar, when we're back in 2022 starting this show, 2030 seemed like a long time away.
yeah,
But, next year we're heading into the
yeah,
2025,
yeah, yeah.
2026 NBA season, and 2030 is honestly not that far away now. So those picks, might seem like they're a long time, but I think what you're saying is true. I think even if the Magic aren't necessarily competing for championships, I think that they're going to be a good enough regular season team where those picks aren't going to be super
Yeah.
valuable. I also really like this trade for the Grizzlies because if I'm the Grizzlies, I'm still in win now mode with Jar, and this also
Yeah.
does give you the ammo to go and hopefully get someone else, in the future. Magic, listen, I 2 years ago picked Jamal Mosley to win Coach of the Year. You did last year, Ruben. I also picked the Magic to be my surprise team of the year. They took the Cleveland Cavaliers to Game 7 in Round 1, and I think this trade makes them a lot better. I think Jalen Suggs is an unbelievable defender who, now that the Magic are going to hopefully be on a lot more people's radars this year. I think that's hopefully going to be shown. I think that's also why they were able to trade away KCP, who was pretty underwhelming, if we're going to be honest, after his impact with the Nuggets. Bane is younger. He's a better three-point shooter. I think at this point in his career, he's a much better defender than KCP. And similar to Udoka, I think Jamal Mosley is a really good coach. For me right now, I mean, regular season-wise, I agree with you, Ruben. I have them that third behind the Knicks and the Cavs. The Pistons could be there as well, but for me, I've always been quite high on this Magic team. And the one thing I will say, sneaky prediction for me, I think particularly with the East being weaker next year, I'm looking at Paolo as a little dark horse MVP candidate, if I'm being completely honest with you. I look at the West. Well, I'm just saying, I haven't, obviously this trade just happened, so I want to maybe be one of the first people to put that out in the air. But I think for Banchero, they're going to be playing worse teams more often. You're not going to, I'm just saying, you play your conference more than the opposite conference. So that's more of a chance for Banchero to put up better numbers. Now that Bane is on the team, hopefully that allows him to play more freely on the offensive side of the ball. And that's what I think about this trade. I think it's a really, really good trade. Oscar, what teams would you put above Orlando right now?
In the East?
Yeah, in the East. Oh, I could name a bunch in the West too, but I'm just talking about the East.
In the regular season?
Sure.
Cleveland, I think, are going to be better. I think Boston are still going to be better. Depending on what they do right now, I still think they are going to be better. Detroit, I think, will be on par or better. I think Detroit are going to be really good. And I think New York are still going to be up and around there. So I think probably those guys. I think Orlando, they're going to be a good team next year. I just don't think it's going to all click right away. But they have got plenty of years to do it. I think in 2 years they're going to be magnificent. I think they could be top of the East. So
yeah. It's in a way, it's a little bit like Timberwolves-esque for me. Like when Ant, we sort of saw his development, but they were still sort of losing. I feel like a lot of people could sort of see the writing on the wall with the Timberwolves, and I think it might be a bit similar for the Magic, even though they did make the playoffs the last 2 years. I do want to move on. We're going to go to the
Luca, before we move on, Paolo Banchero, $56 for MVP next season. $56 odds.
I might go chuck $10 on that after the show. Because I reckon his odds are not. I reckon that's the highest his odds are going to get. That's what I'm saying. Ruben, do you want to say something before we head off?
No, I think I agree with you, Luca. Because I think Wagner and Banchero are really good players. They just haven't developed that 3-point shot yet, and I just think Bane complements that offense really well. And Orlando, they play really good defense, and we've seen this season that if you can play really good defense, you can get away with not as good offense.
Yeah. Let's go to Portland, guys, where, honestly, I'm a bit baffled by this trade. The Celtics trade for Anthony Simons, trading away Drew Holiday. So the Celtics get Simons on his own, who had averaged 19, 3, and 5 this season. Still a young player, and they also get 2 second-round picks. The Trailblazers, meanwhile, they get Drew Holiday, who also got traded there from Milwaukee before he ended up signing with the Celtics. So Portland seems to be a little mainstay for Drew. Only averaged 11, 4, and 4 this season. Scoring isn't Drew's, most important thing. But honestly, I thought he kind of got washed out in last year's playoffs, in this playoff. So I'm not surprised that the Celtics traded them away. I am surprised they got Anthony Simons back, who, when you look about sort of temporary replacements for Tatum, I think there isn't too many better people you can sort of get for like a 1-year rental type thing. And honestly, they might end up keeping him with whatever happens with Derek White. The Celtics are in a bit of an interesting cap situation. But Ruben, do you like this trade for the Celtics? How do you think that this, what do you think of this trade?
Look, I can understand why Boston did it to get rid of the contract of Holiday, especially with his age. I love Drew Holiday, and I think he was one of the big reasons why they won the chip last season. But I think you had to get rid of Porzingis or Holiday just because of how much they're over the their salary and everything. So I think in that sense it makes sense. Simons, I think you could take a bit of a gamble on. I'm a bit 50-50 with him. He is young. He's injury prone. I thought he was okay at Portland, but I think considering everything, I think that's probably as good as it was going to get. I think in terms of Drew Holiday, I could definitely don't see him in Portland. I think he'll probably go to a contender. I was saying before the episode, I think Miami or Houston personally. I'd love them both there, but we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But I think for Boston, I'm not amazed by the move,
Not the
but
Lakers.
I think the Lakers should fit well, but I'm not sure about the salary and everything, how that's going to work out. But I think my top two would be Miami and Houston for Drew
I'm
Holiday.
seeing that they want to keep him.
But why do they want to keep him though? Because they're not going to compete now. That's why for Portland it just doesn't make sense.
This is the quote I'm reading right now. A report from NBA insider Jake Fisher: the Blazers plan to keep Holiday on their roster and make a push to compete in a highly competitive Western Conference.
I was thinking about this because, look, as much as we do kind of poo-poo on the Blazers, they were 36-46, which isn't that's not horrible for a team that really has no expectations. Currently, the Trailblazers starting lineup right now: Drew Holiday, Shaedon Sharpe, Chimani Kamara, Denny Avdia, and Donovan Clingan. They still have Scoot Henderson there. I don't see them getting further than the play-in. But do I see Shaedon Sharpe, now that Simons is gone, assuming he stays healthy, have a really big push? Yes. Do I like Chimani Kamara being on the all-defensive second team? Yes. Do I think Denny Avdia, absolute beast in my fantasy team this year, particularly down the stretch? Do I see him
passed up on him.
putting up some numbers? Yes. Donovan Clingan, top 3 pick in last year's draft. Could he be any good? Yes. Scoot Henderson, shown some flashes. Yes. They got Thibault on the defensive end. Chauncey Billups, good coach. Yes. Ticking a lot of boxes, but I don't know if I can see them getting past the 8 seed, to be completely honest. But
That's pretty generous as well.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying that's
Yeah,
their
that is
ceiling
generous.
for next season. I think that's their ceiling. But yeah, it's an interesting report, Oscar. I was thinking about this too.
Yeah.
Trailblazers would keep him or not.
Yeah, well, I think that the Celtics need to trade away their guys, and they still got 2 seconds for him. So I think the Celtics won this trade. They got Ant-Free, who's a beast on the offensive side of the ball. So yeah, they kind of needed to do this, and I don't think Drew's going to be very impactful on Portland. I think Drew's a great player. I just don't think it's a great fit for him on this team. I think that he should be looking to go anywhere else. He's old. He's getting older now. He's worth a lot of money. I mean, he's on $33 million or something like that. So I think that he needs to find a place where he can contend, and I don't think Portland is quite the place.
No, but I think in terms of veteran leadership, I think he would give them something good.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Tyson, your thoughts on trade?
Look, Celtics definitely won. You just got a young, great guard,
And
He's
still
averaging
2 picks.
Yeah, and still picks which the Celtics were obviously lacking. And he's been averaging 20 and 4 for the past 4 seasons, and pretty decent efficiency as well. So he's not some of the shock chucker. But sort of the Celtics' identity of always having great two-way players, sort of interesting their approach there. But shipping away old Drew Holiday contract, definitely a great move. Just interesting for the Trailblazers. Obviously, veteran presence, superb. But I think the Blazers' issue was always just having too many guards. Now you just got Shaedon Sharpe, Scoot, and Drew Holiday. So, look, interesting, but oh well.
Luca, is this
definitely.
this might be your surprise team for next year?
Dark horse.
Might be a little insight.
I don't know if I'm going to go that far. I don't know. I think my surprise team next year will probably be coming from the East, to be honest, because I think there's a lot more chances for some prizes in there. But, yeah, listen, guys, it concludes Priceless Takes, episode 81. I am your host, Luca Price, and we will see you all next time.